والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. On this day, Wednesday, October the 10th, as we start 7:01 p.m., 2018 of the Gregorian calendar, which agrees with the Tariq al-Hijri of the migration, the calendar after the migration of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So here we go. With the 29th of Muharram, well actually, excuse me, it's the last day of Muharram, wow. 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. As we conclude this first month of the year of the Hijri calendar, as you will find that the time, like we said, is passing very by expeditiously, or if you want to say, very quickly. As we continue Kitaab At-Tawheed by the great Imam al-Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, as we stopped in the chapter, as we were discussing the ayah and the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Well, actually we didn't start on the hadith, but rather we started in the ayah. Well, Allah Ta'ala had mentioned in His book about the malaika. Allah Ta'ala had mentioned and said about them, until the fright and the horror is removed from them, they will say, what did your Lord say? And they'll say, He said, al-haq wa huwa al-aliyu al-kabir. We said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that this ayah, and likewise this hadith, that we'll read inshaAllah, has numerous benefits as extracted from this text, which we'll talk about inshaAllah bi'idhnillah, as we already, walillahi alhamdu wal minna, started on this matter of discussing about some of the benefits that's extracted from these particular nusus, or these texts. And from them is the affirmation that Allah Ta'ala is above the heavens. We talked about how the ulu of Allah Ta'ala is from the foundation of the creed of Ahl Sunnah, which you'll find that a lot of Muslims have deviated in this affair. This i'tiqad, or this belief, or this conviction, where it's incumbent upon every Muslim to not have any doubt in, as it has been established in the Kitaab, in the Sunnah, and by the Ijma' and the Aql and the Fitrah, that the aboveness of Allah Ta'ala has been affirmed by the Book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the consensus of the Sahaba, and the Aql, likewise, and the intellect and the mind, and the Fitrah and the natural disposition of the human being. If you'll notice in these texts, especially in this ayah, Allah Ta'ala mentions Surah Saba. He says, حَتَّى إِذَا فُزِّعَ عَنْ قُلُوبِهِمْ قَالُوا مَاذَا قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ. So at the end of the ayah, you'll notice that Abu Hurairah, if you look in your books, what does it say about this particular ayah? What does it say? That if Allah Ta'ala preordains a command or an affair in the heavens. If you notice in that, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, if Allah preordains an affair in the heavens. So that's telling and explaining and clarifying to everyone that this matter with the malaika, when it comes or enters inside of them, horror and fright of hearing the speech of Allah Ta'ala, was something that Allah has decreed or destined in the heavens. All of this takes place, and all of this takes place, meaning this horror or this fright that's instilled inside of the angels, it happens in a particular place. That place, is it everywhere? Is it everywhere, meaning in the heavens or the earth, or in every human being? Rather, it takes place in the heavens, as it says clearly in the hadith. If it takes place in al-ulu, that's talking about the angels. But as for Allah Ta'ala, as we said last class, we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, firstly, as regards to Allah Himself, that one should not use the word makan. One should not use the word place. Firstly, it's not a word that was used with the Salaf. It's what they call from those al-ibarat al-muhima, al-mujmala, al-mubhama, al-muhima lil-haqi wal-batil. Firstly, it's from those matters or those words that gives an insinuation of haqq and batil, of truth and falsehood. For verily what's incumbent upon, the one is to stick to al-alfaz al-shar'iyyah, those legislated words that came in the Kitaab and Sunnah. The words that came in the ayat, and came in the book of Allah, it came in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that Allah فوق السبع السماوات أو فوق العرش أو أن الله تبارك وتعالى هو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وما بينهما ثم استوى على العرش. He's the one that created the heavens and the earth and that which is between them. And then He ascended above the arsh. Or that Allah is above the heavens, or that Allah Ta'ala is above, or that Allah Ta'ala is Ali, or that Allah is A'la, or that Allah is Muta'alin. Those are the al-alfaz al-shar'iyyah, those legislative wordings that's incumbent upon the servant and the ibad, all of them to cling to, and not to deviate from them. Rather, he sticks to those words. Rather, the place al-makan, like we said, do away with it as it pertains to Allah. Don't say that Allah Ta'ala is in a place. Leave the word makan. Don't use the word place as it pertains to Allah, because it's from those words that can necessitate truth or falsehood. And the Salaf never used to use that. From those words that are famous amongst the Salaf is the statement of Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, when he was asked, كيف عرفنا ربنا؟ قال نعرفه بأنه فوق عرشه بائن من خلقه. He says, when the great Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak was asked, how do we know our Lord? كيف نعرف ربنا? He said, نعرفه بأنه فوق عرشه بائن من خلقه ولا يخلو علمه من مكان. That Allah Ta'ala, it was asked, how do we know our Lord? He says, we know our Lord that He's above the arsh and He is separate and distinct from the creation. Meaning that Allah Ta'ala is not intertwined or mixed in or inside the creation or mixed with the creation or intertwined with the creation. And when He says, ba'inun min khalqih, He's separate and distinct, meaning that He is not in them, nor are they in Him. Rather, He Ta'ala is above the arsh. Separate and distinct, meaning that they don't have characteristics. He Ta'ala, His characteristics does not resemble the characteristics of the creation either. So He's separate and distinct from His creation. Meaning that huwa munazzah عن المخالطة والممازجة والمداخلة فإنه منزه عن ذلك. For verily Allah Ta'ala is high above being intertwined or mixed in, or the creation being in Him, or He being within the creation. Allah Ta'ala is raised far above all those different types of corrupted beliefs and ideologies. Allah Ta'ala, as Abdullah ibn Mubarak clearly says, He's above the arsh. So like we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that the characteristic of aboveness, or if you want to say, the loftiness of Allah, or the aboveness or the highness of Allah, is something that's been established by the Kitaab, by the authentic Sunnah, and also by the ijma'. And when we say the ijma' of the Sahaba, the ijma' of all, a consensus amongst all the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and it has also been established by the aql, established by the intellect, and by the natural disposition of the human being. As we talked about, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, if you look in these texts of the ayat which is in your book and in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, all of this takes place of the sama' or the hearing of the angels of the wahi of Allah in the heavens. So it's been bounded to a certain particular area. We're not talking about Allah, we're talking about the angels, where they are makhluq, where they're created. For the angels, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, hear this in the heavens. So it's not in every place, nor is it amongst the human beings. It's somewhere separate and distinct where they hear this kalam, where they hear the speech of Allah. So it takes place in the heavens, clearly, which is to show when the angels hear it, it took place on the affair which is pertaining to the ulu or the aboveness of Allah, and that Allah Ta'ala is above them likewise. Allah Ta'ala is above everything. He is above the creation, and the creation are beneath Allah Ta'ala, as we just explained. He is above all of the creation. From the arsh, from the footstool, from the angels, Allah Ta'ala is above them. All of the creation, like we just mentioned and said, is just underneath. All right, underneath. Yes, we do affirm that. The creation is underneath, while Allah Ta'ala is fawq. Jami' al-makhluqat. That Allah Ta'ala is above everything that is created. We said that the ulu of Allah breaks down to three categories. We said number one, you have the ulu of that, meaning the loftiness of He Himself is above the creation. Then we said the second category, what we said, which is called ulu al-makanah. Al-makanah. Not makan, makanatun. The loftiness of the Allah Ta'ala's status. Meaning what the ibad or all of the servants feel of that glorification and that magnification and that veneration of what they have in themselves of glorifying Allah Ta'ala. That's called ulu al-makanah, or you could call it ulu al-qadr. Ulu al-qadr. You can say either one, both of them correct. Then you have the third category, which is called ulu al-qahr, the loftiness of Allah's domination. All these three categories of ulu have been affirmed for Allah Ta'ala. This has all been gathered in the poetry, as he says, Al-Hafiz al-Hakami, هو العلي هو الأعلى هو المتعال لي كل معنى علو الله نعتقد قاهرا وقدرا وذاتا جل خالقنا ما حل فينا ولا بالخلق متحد وفي 7 آية صرح باستوى على العرش ربي فهو منفرد. That he said. So the ulu of Allah is number one, ulu al-that, ulu al-qadr, or you could call it ulu al-makana, and ulu al-qahr. All those meanings of the ulu of Allah Ta'ala have been affirmed. We talked about a little bit of the Asha'ira. The Asha'ira, where they take the ulu, you'll find there's no category where the Asha'ira are frank in negating totally more than what they are frank of negating the aboveness and loftiness of Allah Ta'ala. They are frank. They will say either Allah Ta'ala is not above, nor is He under, nor is He to the left, nor to the right, some of them say. Some of them say that Allah Ta'ala al-arsh wal-farsh ala haddin sawa. That the earth and the arsh are all on the same level. They're all the same. And we talked about, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, that saying that Allah is not above or underneath or to the right or to the left is negation of His existence. Because if you wanted to negate something that doesn't exist in detail, then come with this type of wording. By saying, how describe to me something that's not there or doesn't exist. You say it's not to the above, it's not above, it's not underneath or it's not under, nor is it to the left, nor is it to the right. That is a detailed explanation of telling someone that a particular thing has no existence, rather it doesn't exist. Also likewise, like we said, saying that Allah Ta'ala is not in a place, like we said, firstly, number one, none of the Salaf used the word makan. It's number one. None of the Sahaba pertaining to the usage of the kalimat al-makan or place was used. And even if it's used, like we said, it's incumbent upon one to clarify the haqq, which it means. For since you now came with a love, mubtada', as long as you came with an innovative wording, now you have to explain yourself. So if you explain yourself, you will have to say that Allah Ta'ala is above the creation and nothing restricts Him or bounds Him or confines Him. All those meanings are negated because in the Imams of the Asha'ira, they believe that place necessitates some type of what? confinement or restriction or some boundaries in their small minds in which they have not glorified Allah as He deserves to be glorified. We say the meaning that is batil, that is rejected, as we said last lesson. If you say it, firstly, get rid of the word place. Because if they use it, say firstly, Ahlul Sunnah, we don't use the word place. We don't use that. Number two, if your intention by saying the word place that Allah is confined or that He's encompassed by all the different directions or angles or what have you, or that Allah is restricted or bounded, then that meaning is negated, is rejected. We do not believe it. But what is intended by the word place, Shaykh al-Islam had mentioned this, and I'll bring the book inshallah when he was refuting not only the Asha'ira, but also in the refutation against the Ahbash. Also likewise, if you mean by the place, meaning that He is not confined, rather He is bigger than everything, and He Tabarak wa Ta'ala encompasses everything because He's bigger than everything, then that meaning we affirm, and that is the meaning that Ahlul Sunnah accepts, and this is our belief. But however, the word makan is not used. Stay away from it, because it's what they call min al-ibadat al-muhima lil-haqq wal-batil. It's from those words that necessitates and it causes confusion, because it's a word that was newly invented to cause confusion in the minds of the people, to have doubt in certain characteristics of Allah. From them is the aboveness of Allah. So in order to cause confusion in the minds of the people, they came with this type of word called makan, place. And they use other words such as taharruk, such as ab'ad, or such as jawhar, other names that we'll talk about in this due time. But for now, what we're speaking about now is the word place. For that word place is from those ibarat that are muhima, necessitates truth and falsehood. So like we said, the Salaf never used it, so stay away from it. But if someone used it, then it's incumbent upon them to ask them, what do you intend by the word makan? And like we said, this trick still to this day is used. It's never ceased that the tricks of Ahl Batil from the time of old and during the time of today and modern day times is still used. When they come to use words to try to trick and foil the people and confusing them. Such as what, like we said, in modern day times, in order to cause confusion amongst the people's methodology, they'll come with the word taqleed. Taqleed, we don't blind follow the scholars. We don't blind follow the ulama. We don't blind follow Shaykh Rabi'. We don't blind follow. Then you have to now, since you generally use the word, since the word now is a word that can necessitate likewise min qabil al-ibarat al-muhima lil-haqq wal-batil. It's also from those words that causes confusion, which can necessitate truth and falsehood. Because if you go back to I'lam al-Waqi'een by Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions that taqleed breaks down to different categories. Taqleed, at the head of it is wajib. There's taqleed that's wajib. In actuality, it's ittiba'. It's found Kitaab and Sunnah. That type of taqleed is wajib upon every servant. And then you have taqleed that's mustahab. And you have taqleed that's mubah. And you have taqleed that's makruh. And you have taqleed that's muharram. So the person uses taqleed, you will have to ask, the type of taqleed that we're doing in Shaykh Rabi', is it taqleed that's wajib, where he's bringing dalil from Kitaab and Sunnah? Or is it the type of taqleed that's muharram, where he's not using any evidences or proofs? Which one are you talking about? Do not come with a generalized word to cause confusion in the minds of the people, to stir up and arouse the feelings, where it's not something where you're clarifying, which can now, the meaning can be used in a manner that agrees with the truth, not with falsehood. The point we're trying to make is, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, you'll find that people come with statements that can necessitate truth and falsehood. Back in the times of old with the Mu'tazila and the Jahmiyyah and the Asha'ira and the Maturidiyya and other than them. And at these days and times, the Ahbash. They will come and utilize these words such as makan to cause confusion in your mind. They'll even use it against you. Do you believe Allah is in a place? Firstly, you would say, I don't believe that Allah Ta'ala. Firstly, we don't use the word makan. That's not even a word, and it was a word that was not used with tasarruf. That was a word you used to try to cause confusions in the minds of the people. Now you want to try to use that against me, to try to cause some doubt in myself that Allah is not above. So they come with these words, they'll use this in these questions, where now you have to now ask them, it's binding upon you to clarify, what do you mean by place? Because in your mind, O Asha'ira, those who are upon their way, who traverse upon their path, You believe that Allah, if you affirm aboveness, then that means He's confined, or He's been bounded, or restricted by directions, or what have you. In the minds of Ahlul Sunnah, we believe Allah is above, but He's not confined, and He's not restricted. Rather, Allah is bigger than everything. Because how can you say that Allah Ta'ala is confined? When just the mere Mawdi' al-Qadamain, which is the kursi, in comparison to the heavens and the earth, like we said last class, it's just like a ring that's been thrown in the middle of a desolate desert. Because we know the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in His book, Surah Al-Baqarah, وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That just a mere place of the 2 feet of Allah that is bigger than everything that encompasses everything in the heavens and the earth. That's just the kursi, in which you'll find in comparison to the arsh, likewise is very minute and small. In which you'll find that Ibn Abbas mentioned and says that أَنَّ الْعَرْشَ يُقَدَّرُ قَدْرُ, that it cannot be even measured. That's how huge and magnificent and great it is, and how large. And Allah Ta'ala is above that, and Allah Ta'ala is bigger than everything. For Allah Ta'ala, this being His level, subhanahu jalla fil ula, how can you say that Allah is confined? That's in your mind, who has not truly glorified Allah as He ordered to be glorified. But notice that they use the words glorify in order to cover up or camouflage what is behind it so that people can accept it. Allah is not confined. Allah is far above that. Allah is glorified that He be confined or restricted. That's in your mind in the meaning in which you've been affected by the pollutants of the ideologies of the people of old, in which people still to this day are being affected by it. For we say, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that the affair of the ulu, as you'll find in the books of the Asha'ira especially, and we focus on the Asha'ira because they're more prevalent, even though the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila are not a group that are actually prevalent with an actual name, meaning that they're a firqatun qa'imatun بنفسها تسمى الجهمية والمعتزلة, meaning that they're actually a group that has now called themselves the Asha'ira or Jahmiyyah. Rather, they're the people who have adopted their customs, or adopted their ways, adopted their ideologies and beliefs, are called the Asha'ira and the Maturidiyya. From their beliefs, like we said, that the Asha'ira are the most prevalent of the Muslim world today. They have that ideologies, they are the dominant of the Muslim world today. The belief and the ideologies of the Asha'ira, which they took all their beliefs from the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila, but they tweaked it a little bit. As they affirmed, like we said, 7 characteristics, in which we'll find in the poetry where it says, هو الحياة والكلام والبصر سمع إرادة وعلم واقتدر. That says in the poetry that they affirm, هو الحياة والكلام والبصر سمع إرادة والعلم واقتدر. That they affirm the 7 characteristics, and from them is, notice that none of them are ulu. From them is life. That's number 1 of what they believe. Al-hayatu and al-kalam, speech, sight, hearing, knowledge, ability, and Allah intending or wanting to do something. For number 1, we'll stick it to, notice that in those 7 categories, they never affirm what? Aboveness at all. Negated it totally. They are not frank more of saying to your face of a characteristic that they do not agree in, more than they'll say to your face that we don't agree that Allah is above. What's so strange is, matter of fact, we won't talk about that right now. But anyway, this is what you'll find in these texts. For number 1, we say, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, all these texts of what's in your books and in these hadith affirm the aboveness of Allah Ta'ala. Because none of this, of what happens with the angels, of horror being instilled in them, or them saying that Allah Ta'ala, that He says the truth. It says clearly in the hadith, what everyone? That they hear, or this takes place in the heavens. It says it clearly, frank. If you look in your books, it says it clearly. It takes place in the heavens. Of this horror being instilled in the malaika. And also likewise it being removed, and them hearing the speech of Allah, which is the wahi of Allah Ta'ala saying the truth. And now in regards to the second, as we said, we affirm, is the speech of Allah Ta'ala. As we said, the speech of Allah is a characteristic of Allah's what? Essence. And it's a characteristic of Allah Ta'ala's will, both. So it's not just a sifat al-that. It's not a characteristic of Allah's essence and that's it. If you say that it's just a characteristic of Allah's essence, then you agree with the Mu'tazila and you agree with the Asha'ira. So it's incumbent upon the one, because the Mu'tazila and the Asha'ira, they come with a confusing statement saying that Allah Ta'ala's kalam is a kalamun azali abadi. That it was done, meaning altogether. Meaning that when Allah spoke to Musa, when Allah spoke to Isa, and when Allah spoke to Sulaiman, and when Allah spoke to Ibrahim, or when Allah Ta'ala spoke to Nuh, or when Allah Ta'ala spoke to Ibrahim, or when He spoke to Muhammad, it all happened at the same time. That's basically the belief of the Mu'tazila and the Asha'ira. It happened at the same time, which absolutely doesn't make any sense. That's a speech and that's a belief that's confusing. So they say that it happened fil azali abadi. That the Mu'tazila say that it happened all at the same time. That Allah Ta'ala spoke to Ibrahim, that Allah Ta'ala spoke to Muhammad, or that Allah Ta'ala spoke to Isa, or that Allah Ta'ala spoke to Ibrahim, or Nuh, it all happened at the same time. As we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, the speech of Allah is a characteristic of Allah's essence. Where Ahlul Sunnah come with the second, which is that it's a part of Allah's will, likewise. And this hadith, of which we'll read inshaAllah, this hadith, if you look in your books, that the har happened at a certain time when it was removed. Meaning the har happened at a time, at a specific time. Meaning when Allah declared an affair in the heavens, the har of the malaika happened at a certain time. From the different numerous texts we'll talk about inshaAllah. Where you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam have mentioned about how in certain ayat that certain things take place, or even what happened to Musa and what happened to the Prophet ﷺ, that the different types of what you call the adverbs that took place necessitates that it happened at a time. They did not happen simultaneously as the Mu'tazila and the Sha'ira say. For verily, notice in one ayah, and I'm going to just give one dalil and I'm going to suffice with that. When Allah Ta'ala says in one ayah, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ, that when Musa came to our appointed time and your Lord spoke to him, meaning that the speech did not take place until Musa came to that place. Upon the nonsense of the Asha'ira and the Mu'tazila, that happened before, and it happened at the beginning of the time, as they say, before Musa came. Where Shaykh al-Islam said this type of wording, فَلَمَّا, and we know lamma in the Arabic language meaning that it happened at a particular time. When that time happened, then the speech took place. So that you'll find that the aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah makes sense. That the speech of Allah Ta'ala is based upon what they say, قَدِيمَ النَّوْعِ حَادِثَةُ الْأَحَدِ, that the speech of Allah is old in its type and that it happens from one time to the next. And it does not happen at the same time. That the speech of Allah is old in its type and it happens from one time to the next. قَدِيمَ النَّوْعِ حَادِثَةُ الْأَحَدِ. What do we mean قَدِيمَ النَّوْعِ? Old in its type, meaning it's a part of his essence. حَادِثَةُ الْأَحَدِ, it happens from one time to the next, meaning it's connected to his what? To his actions. That it happens from one time to the next, meaning that Allah Ta'ala, when the time for Nuh, when he created him, he spoke to him at that time. And then the time, for example, of certain prophets and messengers, when that time came, the speech happened. And when the time came for Musa, then Allah Ta'ala spoke to him at his time. And Ibrahim's similar to that. Likewise, when the time of Ibrahim had came, Allah spoke to him in that particular time. And likewise, the Prophet ﷺ, when his time came, Allah spoke to him in that particular time. You'll find that Allah Ta'ala describes his speech as having huduth, meaning that it happens from one time to the next. And I'm not going to get too deep into this. That's just summarized. Well, Allah Ta'ala says in this book, وَلَا يَأْتِيهِمْ مِنْ ذِكْرٍ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ مُحْدَثٍ إِلَّا اسْتَمَعُوهُ وَهُمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. As Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Anbiya, that he says about his speech, that a remembrance doesn't come to him. And from him is his speech, meaning the book of Allah or the ayat. So nothing comes to them, meaning from him, to the kuffar, clarifying the truth. That is a remembrance, meaning his speech. Muhdath. Allah called his speech huduth, or it has huduth, meaning it happens at a particular time. And it doesn't happen at the same time as the Mu'tazila and the Sha'ira says. That's a belief that's what? Totally confusing. Rather, the speech of Allah takes place from one time to the next. And that is the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. And you'll find that there's a lot of ayat, affirming this. Well, Allah Ta'ala in so many different ayat, using adverbs in certain ayat, showing that when that particular time came, that's when Allah spoke. And you'll find that in a lot of ayat. More that could be numbered, more that can be enumerated. What happened with Musa? فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا. Or, he said, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى فَنَادَيْنَاهُ مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ الْأَيْمَنِ وَقَرَّبْنَاهُ نَجِيًّا. He said, when Musa came from the right side of the mountain, we called him out. Meaning that the call out did not happen until Musa came to the what? To the side of the mountain. That's when the actual speech happened. That, when a person hears that, every person say that makes absolute sense. The aqeedah of the Sha'ira is confusing. And the aqeedah of the Mu'tazila is confusing. How can it say that it all happens simultaneously at the same time? With the exact same words on top of that? All of that, like we said, is baseless. And there's no dalil for it. All of that is because they put forth their minds over the what? The revelation. That's the reason why they fell into what they fell into. And that's the problem. When contrast to Ahlul Sunnah, they give precedence to the revelation over what? Over the intellect. That is the foundation of Ahlul Sunnah. The foundation of the Salafiyyin of Ahlul Sunnah is they give precedence to the revelation over their minds. Is that clear what I'm saying, everyone? That the revelation takes precedence over everything else. In contrast to the Asha'ira, the Jahmiyyah, the Mu'tazila, the Maturidiyah, the Ahbash, and whoever they are upon them in their وَمَنْ يَدُورُ فِي فَلَكِهِمْ, whoever's in their orbit or in their area. All of them, their problem is that they gave precedence to their intellects over the revelation. And that is where the origin of their misguidance came from. And that's why they fell into what they fell into. Glorifying the intellect over the revelation. Where the revelation to them is as if they say مِن بَابِ الِاسْتِئْنَاسِ. It's just to complement the mind. Not to really actually be utilized as something as a foundation. That's what they say. That the wahi, تُذْكَرُ مِن بَابِ الِاسْتِئْنَاسِ. That is something that complements the revelation, complements the mind. But it's not actually the foundation, as they say. But however, Ahlul Sunnah is, we reverse it. We say that the revelation is the what? Is the foundation. And the mind, if the mind comes and it can affirm certain things, then that's only utilized to complement. But if the mind contradicts it, then it's what? It's taken away and it's thrown in the garbage. But however, certain characteristics we'll talk about, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. As regards to the sifat al-aqli, matter of fact, let me leave that to the side. For the characteristic of speech of Allah, like we said, ya ma'ashar al-ikhwa, is affirmed by what? Firstly, it's number one, we say it's what? It's a kitaab, it's a sifa, it's a characteristic of Allah's essence. And if it's Allah, it's a characteristic of Allah Ta'ala's what? Of His will. Meaning, that's a characteristic of His actions. We also describe the speech of Allah that it's old in its type. Absolute oldness, no doubt. Meaning the ability was there to do it all the time. And it happens from one time to the next. Write that down too. What is the meaning of old in its type? The characteristics, there are certain characteristics of Allah Ta'ala that have absolute oldness. Absolute oldness. Absolutely. What do we mean by that? From that is the characteristic of Allah, aboveness. Ulu is qadim an-naw'. Qadimat an-naw'. Absolute oldness. What is the meaning of absolute oldness? Absolute oldness, for example, number one, and I'll just say this quickly. Then we'll go on to what I wanted to speak about. Oldness breaks down to two types. Number one, you have al-qidam al-mutlaq. You have absolute oldness. And you have al-qidam al-nisbi. You have relative oldness. Relative oldness. Absolute oldness means, as Ibn al-Qayyim mentions, it says, as he says, rahimahullah, absolute oldness means it had no beginning to it. That's absolute oldness, meaning it has no beginning. Absolute oldness is only for Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala. Second category of relative oldness, that's for the makhluk. Meaning, that in regards to that is older than that. That in regards to that is older than that. So-and-so is older than me than age. That particular place is older than me. Or that particular place is older than that place. That relative oldness. That's only for the creation. For Allah Ta'ala is affirmed for him absolute oldness, meaning no beginning. And likewise, there's no ending to him. Subhanahu. Ma a'zama sha'nahu. Subhanahu. So we say, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that absolute oldness is all the characteristics of his essence. All of them. Every single last one of the characteristic of Allah's essence. From those characteristics of his essence is ulu, is aboveness. Allah is always and will never cease to have the characteristic of loftiness and aboveness. That is a characteristic that always sticks with him and never goes away. Never, ever. Allah is always above. That's characteristic you'll find that Ahl Ilm expressing and saying is qadimat an-naw', absolute oldness. Some of his characteristics are not described as being qadimat an-naw'. And we'll discuss that later on. But as far as for what we just said now, we'll just suffice by saying his speech is a little bit tricky. So keep in mind the speech of Allah is both qadim an-naw', hadithatul ahad. It's a characteristic of Allah's essence, and it's a characteristic of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. Is what everyone? His actions, both. Suffice with that, and that's it. There's a little bit I can get a little bit more deeper, but it'll cause confusion right now. I think in certain people. You find that the sha'ira that they find, you'll find, like we said, the fitna during the time of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah was the fitna of the sha'ira. Know for sure, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, during the time of Imam Ahmad. As we know, his fitna was the Mu'tazila. There was a great scholar, his name was Al-Miqrizi, rahimahullah, Al-Miqrizi, that he said, during the fitna of Imam Ahmad, mihnat Imam Ahmad, during the trial, the fitna of Imam Ahmad, as from the Khalifat al-Ma'mun, Khalifat al-Abbasi, from the Abbasi, Khilafat al-Abbasiyya, from the Abyssinian Khilafah or the Caliphate successorship. His name was Khalifat al-Ma'mun. As we know, that was the trial, during the time of the trial of Imam Ahmad, right everyone? You have al-Ma'mun, then you have al-Mutawakkil, what was lifted, but we'll just talk about al-Ma'mun for now. You have al-Ma'mun, then al-Mu'tasim, then al-Wathiq, then al-Mutawakkil. But at any rate, let's talk about Ma'mun. Then you have the two Khalifates that came after him. He's using the bathroom. You have Ma'mun, then you have al-Mu'tasim, then you have al-Wathiq, then you have Mutawakkil ala Allah. For firstly, Khalifat al-Ma'mun was where Imam Ahmad was put to trial. Then after the two Khalifas that came after him, as we know, that was the reason why the Aqeedah of the Mu'tazila became widespread. And the Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah, of the Aqeedah to Salafiyah, became, as far as it still being the haqq, but as far as with the people, it became what? It became hidden. It became hidden. Meaning for dhuhur, as far as it being prevalent, being dominant. It went into a state where it became amongst a certain small amount of people. And the history came by, as a Miqrizi goes on to say, that it became weak, not as far as it being the truth. The truth is the truth. We're talking about as far as in the belief in it within the people. It became hidden. And that Miqrizi goes on to say that Ahlul Sunnah became distributed in certain corners and bounded places in the dunya, where they were hot in their belief. Until then the Aqeedah of the Asha'ira came. And then they became the dominant. Taking their belief, of course, from the Mu'tazila and a lot of beliefs and their belief system. From them, like we said, is negation of the aboveness of Allah, and likewise them agreeing that the speech of Allah is created. Because the Mu'tazila believe it, and the Asha'ira believe that the speech of Allah is created. Both of them, and the Jahmiyyah, of course. But we're talking about as far as the domination period. What took place from the Imam Ahmad after his mihna, after his trial, and what happened to the Aqeedah to Salafiyah within that time frame from the 400, I would say the 13th or 4th century, all the way up to when Shaykh al-Islam came. The Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah became hidden, where the dominance or the deviance became what? Stronger. Then the Asha'ira came, they manifested, until Allah Ta'ala revived and made and brought dominance to Aqeedah of Salafiyah and Aqeedah Ahlul Sunnah by the hands and the tajdeed and the revival of what? Of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. So, Shaykh al-Islam was the one that came and clarified the deviance of the Asha'ira. Because during his time, his fitna of course was the Sufiyyah, no doubt. And all the other deviant sects that were around him. But the fitna of what he faced during his time, which was considered his true fitna of his trial was test, was the fitna of the Asha'ira. The fitna of the Asha'ira, why? Because they were the closest of emulating and looking and appearing as if they were from Ahlul Sunnah, but they were not from them. But the people, of the similarities of that they had, the people thought that they were the people of the truth. So Shaykh al-Islam had came and clarified their falsehood because they were so close in looking like them until the point that the people thought that they were the people of the truth. And that was the fitna of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah during his time, which is the fitna of the Sha'ira. Shaykh al-Islam came with that book called Dar al-Ta'adud al-Aql wa-Naql. He established this book in refuting the Asha'ira, exposing how they are not like Ahlul Sunnah, and showing their distinction and how they're clearly distinct from them and they're not from them absolutely whatsoever. Because like we said, the origin of the Asha'ira, that they gave precedence to their intellect over the what? Over the revelation. Shaykh al-Islam had authored the book, Dar al-Ta'adud al-Aql wa-Naql. The book that's entitled Removing the Notion that the intellect and the mind came to reject the revelation. Where you'll find that he will repeat over and over again in that book, he says, Al-Aql al-Sarih al-Salim la yukhalifu al-Naql al-Sahih. And you'll find that he repeated that over and over again all throughout his book. He used to say, Al-Aql al-Salim al-Sarih la yukhalifu al-Naql al-Sahih. He said that the mind that's not been tampered with, that is upon its true, innate, correct belief, will never oppose the revelation. Meaning that the mind and the intellect was created to submit to the revelation, not to oppose it, and not to go against it. Rather, it was created to understand it merely, not to be utilized as to judge the revelation. Rather, the revelation was made to what? To control and to what? And to dominate and to point in the right direction how the mind should be. Not the opposite. The mind never points the wahi, the revelation, in the right direction. The wahi, the revelation, directs the mind in the right direction. So that's the reason why we said that the mind was made to what? To submit to the revelation. Not to dominate it, not to oppose it, not to take precedence over it. And he offered that in that book called Dar Ta'arud al-Aql wa Naql, removing the notion and rejecting the notion that the mind came to what? Reject the revelation. An-Naql al-Sahih, the authentic conveying, meaning the revelation, because that's what the revelation is. The revelation is the authentic narration and the authentic text. That's revelation. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone, so far? During the time of the Ash'ari, which Ibn al-Qayyim says in his poetry, I'm sorry. It's time for the adhan. What's the color? What's the time? Is it time, Amir? What's time? You want to call it? Tafadal. I don't think he's here. He's not here. Amir's not here. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. I think you guys are a little tired today. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعث مقام محمود الذي وعدته. Like we said, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, the fitna during the time of Shaykh al-Islam was the fitna of the Ash'ari. That was his fitna. Even though all the deviant sects from around him were all fitna, especially the Sufiya, who actually was the one they were the ones that was the reason for his imprisonment, for his incarceration, or for his imprisonment. They whispered to the Wali al-Amr. They used to whisper, be in the ears of the ruler, saying that he was causing fitna, until the ruler displayed enmity. I don't want to deviate from this anyway. Let's stick to what we were talking about. As far as the speech of Allah, to remove the notion, removing the notion that the mind came to oppose the revelation. The mind came to submit to the revelation. And the revelation is what directs the mind to understanding and having a proper understanding. Not utilizing the mind to dominate and direct the revelation. That's not how the mind was made. The mind was made to understand things. To understand what is cold, what is hot, to comprehend, for comprehension, to know what is beneficial, what is harmful for his body or for harm for his physical, to know fire harms, cold is cold, to understand, to comprehend. Not for those feelings now to be dominated to when revelation comes to now say and utilize to say, that is wrong. I'm not accepting that because my mind is not accepting that. Rather, like we said, the revelation has been made to what? To redirect and put the mind in its proper place. So it can have the proper understanding. So, as a human being, he can conduct himself properly. Because the mind is where all the balaya of all the atrocities take place of human beings. Because their mind and the way they think is messed up. For everything, once this is rectified, then what comes out on the actions is rectified. Once the heart is rectified, and once the mind has been rectified, and we say, it's more befitting that we say the heart. Then once the heart is rectified, then like we said, everything else will be rectified. And then the society will be rectified. But the origin of all atrocity starts with the belief system of the people and how they think. So verily, like we said, Shaykh al-Islam had came and exposed the Asha'ira, that they were not from Ahlul Sunnah. From those deviant affairs that you'll find that he exposed, is how and it was so funny, is that the Mu'tazila declared the Asha'ira to be, they used to declare them to be kuffar. Declare them to be kuffar. Because they affirmed those 7 characteristics and they say, يَلْزَمْ مِنْ إِثْبَاتِ سَبْعِ صِفَاتَ تَعَدُّدُ الْقُدَمَاءِ. They'll say, because we know that the Asha'ira what? They affirm those 7 characteristics. They affirm a couple more. But for the most part, the 7, which they're known for, the Mu'tazila say that you are kuffar because y'all affirm this. Because they say affirmation of those characteristics necessitates that there are what? More than one deity. Then the Mu'tazila changed their mind, say you're not kuffar. Why? Because me and you both agree that the speech of Allah is what created. So then they were pleased with them and they accepted them. Look into the nonsense. So now we agree that they're what? They created. You agree it's created. So now we what? We pleased with you. We agree with you. Look into the absolute nonsense. So that is you'll find from the deviant ways, and there's other things, but that's just to summarize it. If we would get into it, inshallah, if we was to go inside Kitaab At-Tawheed, we was to get into maybe Al-Aqidat al-Wasitiyya one day, then we'll get into it a little bit more deeper. I think more this kind of sharh would be for Al-Aqidat al-Wasitiyya. But anyway, if we was to get into Tahawiyya maybe, or get into those books, then you'll find that it gets a little bit more slightly complicated. So I give everybody just a little, as they say, ru'us al-aqlam. Give you the heads of what's considered the basics of what they believe of misguidance. So what you say, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that we say, based upon these texts, is that we affirm the aboveness of Allah and the other categories of it, and the speech of Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, as you'll find, like we said in the ayah, it affirms that, and likewise in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ here in this text. Can the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be affirmed by the aql? Some of the characteristics of Allah. And I'm going to say this and we'll stop. Can certain characteristics of Allah be affirmed by the intellect and the mind? That's a question. It's kind of rhetorical. Slightly rhetorical. Matter of fact, it is rhetorical. Lest we say, don't answer it. Is the characteristics of Allah, is it? Is some of them, can they be affirmed by the mind or not? Some of them we say, yes, they can. Take in consideration that it's not the foundation. You'll find that the Asha'ira, they call the characteristics of Allah, meaning of His essence and what they affirm, which is the 7 of life, and what you wrote down about half an hour ago, hearing, sight, ability, to the end of it, which you wrote down, they call those characteristics sifat aqliyah, characteristics that the mind affirms. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? They say the mind affirms that. The mind, the intellect. Why we keep saying that? Because they give precedence and glorify what everyone? The mind first. Over what? With a revelation. That's the problem. Taib. They say, Taib, Ahlul Sunnah, you can't say that these characteristics cannot be affirmed by the mind? We say, yes, they can be. But that's not the origin of why we affirmed it. The origin of why we affirmed it was because of the revelation first. The revelation came first. And the mind came following behind the revelation. That's your problem. However, we affirm these characteristics taking consideration that the foundation with us was the revelation, not the mind. Even though the mind can affirm it. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear what I'm saying or not? So verily, number one, those characteristics of what the Asha'ira affirm, we say yes. They affirm by Kitaab, Sunnah, consensus, the mind, and the Fitra, Jibilla, Sajiyya, or Jibilla, or Fitra. The Fitra, the natural disposition of the human being, is innate natural disposition of how he's created. So it's been, and it was affirmed by all of that. What do we mean by can affirm by the mind? I think it's clear. Meaning that if we didn't have the revelation of Kitab and Sunnah, can the mind affirm it? We could say yes. Agree with the Asha'ir on that point, but it's not the foundation, like we said. You understand, everyone? But the mind can affirm it. Is it clear? But that's not the origin. The origin is the foundation with Ahl Sunnah and the Salafi. And the mind follows behind it. After the affirmation of Kitab, Sunnah, Ijma', then the what? Then the mind. After Kitab, Sunnah, consensus of the Sahaba, and the mind, then the natural disposition. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's what we say first. Is there a sifa that Ahl Sunnah believe that there's just a characteristic of Allah that's just affirmed by the mind by itself? No, there isn't. Doesn't exist. There's only based upon what the revelation affirms and the mind follows behind it. Is there any sifa of Allah? And I'm going to ask again. This is not rhetorical. Is there a sifa of Allah, a characteristic of Allah that can be affirmed just by the intellect without Kitab and Sunnah Ijma'? Huh? Does it exist? No. Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. So those characteristics of Allah, what they call sifat al-aqliyah, we affirm those characteristics, those 7, amongst the others. However, taking consideration that the revelation is the foundation, and that's what we give precedence to, and the mind and the intellect follows behind it. You also have characteristics that are naqliyah or sam'iyah, or if you want to call it, you could call it khabariyah. And I'm going to end it off here, and everyone studies that, and that's it. We'll end the class off right here. You have certain characteristics of Allah that are only known through revelation, meaning that the mind has nothing to do with it, meaning that the mind cannot affirm it at all. You have characteristics of Allah that's only been affirmed by revelation, meaning if it wasn't that Allah revealed it to us, we would have no way of knowing it. Those characteristics are called either sam'iyya, or you could call it naqliyya, or you can call it khabariyya. All of it means the same thing. They're all synonyms for one thing. Characteristics that are affirmed by the revelation, which is called either sam'iyya or khabariyya or naqliyya. It all means the same thing. You can pick either one of your choice. If you want to just use one word, just say naqliyya. That will suffice. Or if you want to say khabariyya, suffice. If you want to say sam'iyya, suffice. Meaning, there's characteristics of Allah we will have no way of knowing except that Allah affirmed it. From that is the laughter of Allah. From that is Allah rejoicing at the tawbah of his slave, or that Allah laughs, or that Allah ascended, Allah ascends, or that Allah descends every night. There was no way of knowing about those characteristics except through the revelation. We will have no way of affirming it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. The characteristic of ulu, I'm asking everyone. What type is that? of the aboveness, the loftiness of Allah. Number one we say is essence. It's essence first. Then we can also say aboveness. Aboveness, loftiness. Characteristic of his essence. Characteristics. You can say aqliya too. It can be affirmed by the aql. And also through revelation. You can say khabariya too if you want. Yes. The aboveness of Allah can be affirmed, Allah's essence is affirmed, of course, by Kitaab, Sunnah, consensus, by the aql, and by the fitrah. The aboveness of Allah. As far as, for example, Allah's dissension, and I'm going to stop here, that's a characteristic that's only, we'll talk about the sam'iyah. First we say it's his actions, it's connected to his will, and it's only known through the revelation. That's it. Is it clear what I'm saying? I'm going to stop here. We'll talk about the rest later. Filled your head up for today. This gets easier as you repeat it. This is just the basics. If you really get inside some of the stuff you read, if you don't have a person explaining it, your mind would be really messed up. Because the origin of all this nonsense came because of the deviant sects translating not only Greek mythology, but Greek philosophy, translating the books and trying to incorporate it along with the revelation. That's where all these atrocities came from. It seemed like a majority of the atrocities of the dunya came from the Greeks, from polytheism and from philosophy, from Plato, Aristotle, and who's the other stuff of the law? Socrates, Wed.Fri.Sun.After, and also you have Ibn Farid. All of them are the philosophers. Ibn Farid, Wed.Fri.Sun.After, Ibn Ajib. All of them are the philosophers. Greek, Aristotle, Plato. All of them, they translated their affairs, their books, philosophy in Greek, and from the Muslims they tried to adopt it. And what came as a result of it is what we live in today. All the atrocities of the beliefs of the Muslims and their deviants came from that. They tried to translate it because now, philosophers, what did they do? What's the origin of what they glorify? The mind. They glorify the intellect. All of that. They glorify the mind, the intellect. So that's when they try to incorporate that with revelation. Now the mind is dominant over the revelation. So all the origin of all those different balaya and the razaya and those tawam or tammat, all of them came from them. And the Muslims translated their books, adopted it. So which came as a result of it, all the ulama had to come with these different types of ways in order to defend the correct creed, to reject what was utilized as a way to pollute and taint the correct creed. So Ahl Sunnah came with these qawa'id, these principles to defend the pure belief system in a fundamental, orthodox way, of which the Prophet ﷺ was upon, the Sahaba, and those who came after them and followed them with ihsan. Is it clear what I'm saying? Kate, stay with me. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Any questions about the lesson? Not believing that even of the atrocities of the Greeks and also the people of the book. But the people of the book also received what they did. They don't believe. If you look, the story is all chain. Everything is a sanid, whether it be a sanid of batila or a sanid of husn and of that which is good. But all of it is a sanid. Even a sanid of falsehood. You'll find that even falsehood has a sanid. Like Salam Rahmatullah. Tafadal. Salam Rahmatullah. No, that's what the Asha'ira affirm. 7. They have deviant sect. Just keep it there. They're just a deviant sect. They're a deviant sect. But Ahl Sunnah, we as people, what we call ourselves Ahl Sunnah, we believe that Allah is more than that. So not just bounded to 7. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What was your question? Approvedness of Allah is part of his characteristics, of his essence. Now, yeah, absolutely. They negate it. They don't believe in it. The Asha'ira don't believe that Allah is above. I can't hear you. Raise your voice. Yes, they don't believe that. You'll find that a lot of Muslims that do not believe that at all. You'll run it, and that's the reason why I'm teaching you this now. Person would say, why am I teaching this and the young youth are here? Because this is the most important of beliefs. To know where your Lord is. If you don't know your Lord is, the origin of what makes you Muslim, you have some doubt in it. So that's the reason I'm touching on it. Because you're going to more than likely run into Muslims. They're going to say this to you. We don't believe Allah is above. Where you get that from? They're going to tell you that. That's the reason why I'm preparing you for when it comes. So I'm building up your fortification and your shield before it actually comes. Because I know Allah knows best. More than likely, you're going to run into Muslims that believe in this type of nonsense. More than likely, you're going to run into it. Tafadal. Absolutely. Absolutely. That we already talked about that in the Hadith Muawiyah ibn Hakam al-Sunami, which is in the Sahihain of the Jariyah, which I talked about last class. That hadith is the origin. You'll find that Hafid ibn Hajar even mentioned in his Fath al-Bari. He said this is the hadith that proves that the belief in the aboveness of Allah is something jibilli fitri. It's the natural disposition of the human being. By the female concubine who affirmed that Allah was above based upon her natural disposition, and she didn't have no education of anything other than her fitrah, other than her natural disposition as a human being. The two things that the Prophet ﷺ affirmed for her having iman, that where's Allah and who am I? She said, she pointed to the heavens, and she said, you are the messenger of Allah. He said, free her, she's a iman, she's a mu'minah. Free her because she's a mu'minah. That hadith is to show, you'll find they said that she had no previous cultivation or teaching or education of anything or in the cultivation. Everything was learned by her what? By her natural disposition as a human being. They say that is the origin of, to show that that belief is something that's been instilled, that Allah created every human being to what? To know naturally. But however, the outside influences of this world, of the different beliefs, comes and corrupts it and changes it. Whether they be Judaism or Christian, but the Christians will believe that. They say, even though they put their own kufr in it, they say our God that's above heavens. But generally they believe, majority of the Christians believe that. They say that God is above the heavens, our Father in the heavens, to the end of it, right? Tayyib. And that's what you'll find that some of even the scholars of the ulama that they say. They say that that it's sad to say that the Christians have something over you. Don't you have any jealousy? That people who are upon kufr have something over you now. They believe that Allah is above the heavens. You don't. They affirm it while you use Greek mythology as an influence to what? To negate it. So now the Christians in this aspect is better than you. And the peoples upon Judaism or Judaism and the other than them, they're better than you in this belief. And the asl of aqidah of what makes you a Muslim. You let them beat you, which is embarrassing. Is it understand it? You understand where I'm coming from, everyone? Because you majority, like we said, of the people of the book believe that Allah is above the heavens. Even like I told you, they put their own kufr in it. They put their own mix to it. They say our Heavenly Father in the heavens to the end of it, right? Right or wrong? Those who are Christians, I was a Christian, I was a Catholic, all of that. And I used to hear that constantly. Our Heavenly Father, which is an affirmation that God is where? They believe that God is where? Above. Is it clear? Any other question? So we can stop and pray. Father Caden. You have to raise your voice a little bit more so I can hear you clearly. You know, he's a father, but he's no one's father. That's correct. What's your question? I need a question. What's the question? Father. Naqliya. Not don't say nakhliya. Naqliya. Nakhliya, it's like someone you can say like a date palm tree. But anyway, naqliya with a qaf. Alright? Any other questions, anyone? طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.